right, hello, hello, hello. Let's just clear really quick before I add Faro on. Give thanks and good evening. For sure, thank you. Episode tonight. Y'all are in for a treat. Hello.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well. Very well.
Good, good, good. Let me see. Can you move your camera down just a little bit?
A little bit.
Just,
Okay.
just a little bit.
That's
Perfect. That's
okay.
perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. Thank you everyone for coming in today. Hey, Francisco. Hey, Ashley.
Mm-mm-mm. Shit. I gotta make it come up. That's better?
That's perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect. It's
Great.
perfect.
Great.
All right. Good evening, Nandi. All right. Pharaoh, do you mind just kind of opening us up for this evening and blessing this session?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm gonna open it up just saluting the ancestors, the Orishas, and that energy of Ire, which is positivity.
Mm. Ashe. Thank you. Thank you. Can everybody hear us both good? Can someone give me a thumbs up just to let us know that you can hear us good before we begin? Can y'all hear us? Okay. Thank you, Ashley. All right. Well, I am super excited to have you here today.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all are not familiar with Pharaoh, I'm going to have you kind of give us an introduction, tell us about yourself before we get into the conversation.
Absolutely. Okay, my name is Faro Oodua. I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. Okay. I own Pharaoh's Lounge, African boutique, full service salon that specializes in natural hair care. But also,
That's where I got my hair done.
Right. Let me put on my Bluetooth a little bit. I am the founding head of the Warrior Priesthood Academy, which involves a rites of passage program for young men, instilling them with self-confidence, building a public speaking skills, community activism, just letting them know that they're fully equipped to deal with all their challenges. And because a lot of times when we run into, young men that they sort of feel ostracized from society. So we let them know that nothing can hold them back but themselves, and they fully are capable to deal with anything they come across. So also, I'm the chief priest of the Warrior Priesthood, which is an organization of Ifa devotees who follow the teachings of our ancestors, as well as the spiritual principles of Orisha. Focus on just staying in balance and the physical and the spiritual, and we promote leadership development, community service, charity events, as well as the youth programs up under the Warrior Priesthood Academy. Also, I am an author of The Urban Guide for Mothers Raising Sons, The Making of a Warrior Priest, which is in connection to the Warrior Priesthood Academy. And in the book, it's directed for mothers raising sons, but it involves everyone, because we know that any of one particular family dynamics don't just is restricted to that family unit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's everyone who the family members come involved with.
Well, we're going to get
So,
into that during the
okay,
conversation,
right.
because I have the book right here, and let me tell y'all, this is good. Give thanks for that. Well,
Right.
Is that everything? I feel
That's
like you missed something. No?
Did I miss something? That's about covered for pretty much
that's the bulk of
85%
it.
of it. Yeah,
That's the bulk of it. Well, give thanks. So just to give y'all a
absolutely.
little insight how I met Faro, I met him at Source Talk. So Council was part of the group with, it was Highness, Tukor, Erica, else was in it? It was a group. I can't remember all the people in the group because they haven't had it since the pandemic. But I think it was like every other Saturday they would have just different discussions.
Correct.
And that's when I was first introduced to you. But of course we became friends and closer through your wife, which is my good friend Nandi, so who was on a couple of weeks ago. And since then, you know, I've got to know a lot about you. And I have to tell you, although we're only like a few years apart, I really do consider you like an elder to me. Like I really learned a lot from you. And
Awesome.
yeah, I appreciate your wisdom that you share and you drop and you really do pour in to the community. So I appreciate that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then also, of course, we're both from Tampa. So,
Correct.
so, you know, we understand a lot of Tampa-isms that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. So I know we
Right.
connect in that way too. So it's good, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
it's good times. We have good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, first of all, just for having me on the show and just granting me the opportunity, you know, to be part of your space and as a guest.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. My pleasure. Well, we have so many other things we could possibly talk about. However, I had the opportunity, and I'm almost done. I'm not completely finished yet, but I do want to talk about the Urban Guide for Mothers and Raising Sons, the making of a warrior priest. And what was this? Maybe like a month or so ago. Actually, no, it's when Nandi was doing my hair. So a couple of weeks ago, I was, you know, reading it, but the first thing that really struck out to me was in the back of the book, and it says there's a saying that goes, "Mothers raise their daughters and love their sons," and that just that line, which is the first line of the summary in the back, really stuck with me, and for the last couple of weeks, just really like even interacting with my daughters or interacting, you know, talking or thinking back with my nephews and my nieces, cousins and whatnot, and just kind of sitting back, even with my partner, I'm just kind of thinking like, that really is a true statement.
Right.
It really is a true statement. So can you kind of expound on that just a little bit before we get into like the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a saying that goes back, and that was a saying that I heard when I was younger. You know, mothers raise their daughters and love their sons. And as I expressed in the book, this comes from a place that's deeper than now, that happened over a course of time, meaning that abuses that happened to them, and just certain mothers feeling a fear for their son's safety. And
Mm-hmm.
and what happened you know, and from my experiences and from those who I speak with, for the clients that I have, I see that, you know, it's just a protective mechanism that moms have for their sons, particularly single moms in the Afro community.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a mechanism that can be a hindrance also, because it can stunt the child's development. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you specifically talk about relationships with single mothers and their children, and I do think, just like you said in the beginning, regardless if you have sons or daughters, whether you
Mm-hmm.
are a single mother or a single father, or you're in a dual parent home, you know, it is important to have that community. And I know, you know, I raised my daughters as a single mother. There was no co-parent. A lot of times we'll say like, oh, I'm a single mother, I'm a single father, but there is a co-parent there. So I don't look at that as, I look as you're just not with the parent anymore, but you're not necessarily a
Correct.
single parent. But reading this, I realized like, I have all these little markers here.
Right.
So let me just, it was something you said about the responsibility and of raising the children, and how we feel so connected to their success, or even I won't call them failures, but maybe their setbacks or these expectations that we put on our kids. And I really sat with that for a second, because you know, in the past couple of years I've been working on being a mother to adult daughters, and how that
Mm-hmm.
has shifted, and how our roles are shifting. And for a while it was pretty, you know, turbulent there, just trying to find that new boundaries between the two. So can you kind of like maybe talk a little bit more about that too? Just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you might be a single mother or single father raising your kid, you know, and as they get older, what that looks like, and that codependency of it too.
Yeah. So from my experience, when it comes to, as parents, we raising children, you know, we tend to link our destiny to them, and which in a way, you know, it is kind of linked because we live through them. But sometimes that can be a stumbling block for us, because we feel is that we, you know, whatever they do, uh, as they go through their learning process, we feel is that, you know, that is something that going to make us stumble, or something that's going to make us not fulfill our duty.
Mm-hmm.
But besides giving them the space to move forward and learning, you know, we grew up in a time where, you know, as I expressed in the book, you know, with me and my peers, we remember coming home late at night and our moms praying for us, you
Yeah.
know, for help, you know, and that's what happens. But the truth of the matter is, you know, the child gonna have to learn on their own, and we can stand in that spiritual gap, but it's only going to work if they learn their experiences in life, because
Mm-hmm.
we cannot try to force them to go past those experiences, force them just to get to the other side without going through those experiences and learning on their own. So sometimes when we try to, you know, do too much, or look at things through our lenses,
Mm-hmm.
and feel as that and feel as that their life, you know, has to be how we believe it's going to be at this moment in time, we can do more, I believe, to damage them than help them succeed.
I agree with that. And it's funny you say that, because I don't know if it was last year. I know it was within these 3 years. Like, you know, I was just really praying over our situation. And that was one of the messages I really got. It was like, you can't learn their lesson for them. So you keep trying to intercede and get in the way and trying to fix it. I'm prolonging their growth. I'm prolonging their
Mm-hmm.
lesson. And then to kind of have that validated in this, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, it really did put a lot of things full circle for me personally and reading
Correct.
this. And we're not going to talk about the whole thing because I really do want y'all to purchase your own. Faro is local, so if you're in Tampa, there is a way. I'm sure, you know, or you ship it however you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and then also too, probably might have some vending opportunities coming up or whatnot. But this really is good, especially for us as Afro Americans. You know, I know also in the book you were mentioning about being young Black men just growing up and, you know, trying to have like the street credit. And
Right.
it's so funny because, you know, I grew up in Odessa, so I grew up in the country. And so when we started, you know, going to school outside of our local schools, you know, I did kind of feel like at some point I couldn't be Christy anymore. I had to kind of, I won't say it to an extreme as boys and girls, but I had to kind of see like that I wasn't soft and I wasn't a pushover.
Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned this. And again, I don't think it's the same as it is with boys, you know, but it is some of that too, that you kind of have to seem like just that you're not soft, you're not a pushover, and people aren't, you know, just won't roll right over you, you know?
Right. Yeah, you know, growing up, me personally, and I know within my community, you know, we have a sense of we ostracized, you know, from society. And so that naturally going to gravitate us towards that street life, you know, hanging out on the corners. And if we hanging in the street life and hanging out of the corner, one of the biggest things that you want is a reputation. You want, you know, oh, you're not soft, you're not a pushover, and you're gonna want to know how to fight, or you just want to do things that's reckless because, you know, like I always say, you know, growing up, we born with two strikes, or you know, we got the toughest job in America, being a Black man because of our skin color or whatnot, you know, and that's just something that, like I stress in the book, is that we should eradicate from our children's perception
Right.
because because this is a hindrance for them to grow, because really only thing that can hold them back is themselves if they
Right.
move with that power and authority. So that was one of the things that, you know, me and my peers led us to that street life, because we feel like, hey, that's the only way that we're going to be successful is by selling drugs, so it's by the illegal life, oh, getting paid in the dark, you know, not seeing a chance of a career of being successful just by the false conceptions and the you know, the false notions that's trying to hold, that was there to hold us back, you know, even if it was intentional.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But why do you think that is? Like, where do you think that even kind of originated from? Because, like you mentioned in the books, and also we're in Florida. I think we all know what's happening with our government. However, I know I shared with y'all before, just kind of going back and thinking about me, my childhood growing up. I didn't learn about Black history from school. I learned about Black history from my family anyway. So what DeSantis is doing now is nothing new.
Right.
I want to say, I feel like they called the enslaved indentured servants or something like that when I was younger. And just, oh, they picked cotton with their family. It was something ridiculous like that. But because, you know, I did have community at home, I knew, you know, I knew the truth. So do you think that has something to do with that? Like, where do you think that even stems from?
I you know, starting off, it's a lack of knowledge, and it's a lack of connection to culture, and I think it started from an original place, but it never grew and it never developed. Meaning that, you know, you think about the '60s, the '50s, and the '40s, where you had those community and you had that empowerment,
Yeah.
you know, to a certain point. But then it's just kind of, I don't think that we build on their knowledge. I think we just kept it and held on to what they have. But it's 2023, everybody else advanced on.
Right.
And so now they're going to come at you, you know, any oppressor or whatever you want to call them, they're going to come at you way different but you're going to still be responding the same way. And, you know, that was good for back then, but now we have to advance. You know, we have to, you know, me personally, it's no more calling what they do privilege. You know what I'm saying? That's nepotism,
Oh,
if anything.
true. Okay, I get that.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's about setting the words and the trends for us to speak with power and authority in everything we do, you know, and not speak as, you know, victims, or speak of like we've been abused, when in actuality, you know, we can set the mark for what we want to do just by moving accordingly.
Okay, so it's interesting you say that. So Friday, that's past Friday, I just, USF, Social Sciences Anthropology Department, for the past 4 years, they were working with my cousin, Michelle, for our family out in Odessa, which we can go back and on paper trace my ancestors back to the 1850s in that land. About, I think it was 150 acres. However, you can't really go anywhere and find this information unless you really go look for it. You would think they didn't even exist. So fortunately, this anthropologist, Dr. Kimberly, and my cousin, you know, worked together. They found, which we knew, our family knew, our ancestors were buried here. It's just, it was like, well, what can you do? You know, they have this property now. Our ancestors are there. They developed over it. Like, what can you do? We didn't know what we could do until recently. And so I spoke for the family Friday, and it was empowering to talk not even just about during their period where they were enslaved on that land, but where they thrived on that land, where they developed that land. They created community. They created enterprise on that land. It wasn't just the story of our enslaved great grandmother that had these children from her enslaver. No, beyond that, they thrived. And so to be able to have, and it's an exhibit, so I'm going to do that little shameless plug if y'all want to. I think it's until January 15th. Is an exhibit. Those are my ancestors that are there at USF Social Sciences. But prior to me knowing this, I didn't know any of that, Faro. Like I didn't know how we ended up out in Odessa. I didn't know any of that. So I didn't have that pride behind that. Now I do.
Exactly.
You know, so you're right. It's to, once you know where you're from, once you know who your ancestors are and what they've overcome, and even just that, just how they thrived, you know. I think we focus so much on that survival, we forget about the thriving part of it.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a big gap.
Yeah. So one of the main tenets of the warrior priesthood is we build out of chaos and create out of destruction, meaning that our mindset is always about development, meaning that long as we have breath, we can do what it is to attain our objective, because we always have a fighting chance as long as we breathing. You know, a slave. So understand, a slave is a mindset. You know, you can force somebody to do something. You can enslave someone and force someone to do something. But a slave is a mindset, someone who believes they don't have options or choices. You always have options or choices in this life, you know, until your last breath, right? Until you make somebody kill you if you got to, you always have options and choices. So within chaos or within those destructive elements, there's always components within them to build. You know, this world was built on chaos. You know, that's how, you know, in the ancient, in the Pharaoh text, Ra was born out of Noon. Noon was primordial waters, which was chaos. So we know this world. You know, you look at any spiritual teachings like the Big Bang Theory, you know, different theological creation stories, is always a form of chaos, but chaos is going to always be here. So it's up to us, you know, to not have a pity party, because the complainer going to always find something to complain about.
That's so true.
A whiner going to always find something to whine about. So it's up to us to look within that and make that situation and get the best that we can out of that situation, you know, and even develop and grow within it. Just like how your experience was which you said with your family, with the property, then you was able to find out what was necessary, to instill the pride within yourself by understanding that they did great works. And they believe that they can do great work. And even they didn't use the perception they could build out of chaos, create destruction. But our ancestors knew that to the point where they kept thriving and moving forward. Because regardless of what situation we're in, we can move through it if we believe we can. If not, hey, we're going to just remain in that zone. We'll still remain in that zone. And then, so, you can look at, like for instance, I don't have no, I tell you the truth, I have no sides on the war, but I look at how the Russia and Ukraine, and I see how Ukraine's presidents just be talking defiant. And I'm like, okay, so, even if you can lose or whatever, it's about you always being defiant to achieve what you want. Ultimately, that is the road to success.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that war. I have a lot of opinions about that. But
because I'm not. But
but I get what you're saying. Yeah. Like when he's on TV, even where he's wearing his fatigue and he's just speaking all this positivity and like we're going to, it definitely is. I can't remember what they call it, but yeah, it definitely is like that's. I get what you're saying.
But now, so now when you compare that to some people who being terrorized and pulverized, and they're going to be like, oh, you can be whining and crying, even though he may be whining and crying in a certain way, but he still have a defiant, mentality. So that's what it's about when it comes to, I think when it comes to us and to achieving our objective, regardless of what adversary comes against us.
So basically, don't let the outside chaos, disturb your inner peace and your trajectory. Like this is where it's going to be. You're not going to allow anything from outside here to interfere with that.
Exactly. And to take it even farther, my motto always been to challenge the challenge. So when you feel that challenge, you have to challenge it, because within that challenge, you're going to grow. Within that challenge, you're going to learn, because if anything, you're going to strengthen some of the weakening parts that you may have.
Faro, what if you tired? Sometimes you're just tired. You don't feel like doing all that.
If you're tired, you got to rest.
Okay.
You're tired, you got to build your energy up. You got to build your energy up. I know about that.
Because that's a lot to have to keep on. It's like, good God. It's like, okay, I need a break. It's like I need a break.
Right, you got to get your rest. You got to restore, but it's going to always be there.
That's what's up. Okay, I do want, it's two things that I've highlighted that I do want us to discuss. And again, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the whole book because I do want y'all to get your own. And Ashley did ask if we can pin where to purchase the book. So I will do that, but I also will put it in the description in the video. But and also, too, if y'all have any questions and have anything you want to say, please start putting them in the comments now, because we are at that 30-minute mark. But it's two things that I want to discuss because I think it's interesting. And when you talk about, and this reminded me of Water and of Spirit by Malidoma Patrice O'May.
Right. Yeah, it's my favorite book. Yeah.
It's honestly, I think it's like one of my top 3 favorite books too. And I just read it maybe 3-4 years ago. Because he transitioned in 21, correct?
Yeah.
So
he just transitioned. I know.
Okay. Yeah, because he's coming up on year 2 this year. So I read it maybe a year or so before he transitioned. But
his wife got a good book too, The Spirit of Intimacy. You read that one?
I have not.
That's
not. I'll have to get that one.
I like that one better than that one.
Really?
Yeah, that's a real good book.
Man.
Yeah.
And of Water and of Spirit, it took me on such a wild trip because every single thing he said that seemed like it was, what they call otherworldly. I believed it. I could see it. I could feel like I was there with him and what he could describe in that book. Yeah. But anyway, so this part in the book, really, this section really reminded me of that book where it talks about in African traditions, there's a belief that children journey through the birth canal as they mature. Their memories are taken away as they gradually forget. And according to that belief, it is thought that children have the ability to remember things before birth perfectly until the age of 5. And during that phase, they also are believed to have the capacity to perceive spiritual beings from other dimensions. So 2 things I'm going to say about that. One, I know this for a fact. My oldest daughter, when she was up until she was probably about 5, she used to talk and looks like they're there. I'm like, Khalil, who are you talking? Oh, I'm talking to Jordan. Jordan, da 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 da. And I'm just like, okay, you know, I didn't say much to it, but there are things that she would say and do that made me feel like, what is this little kid talking about? Like she had been here before. But also it made me think of a water and spirit when Maladoma, when he was talking about the first 5 years of a child's life, they're with their elders, and that's so that
Correct.
way they can, I guess, what was it, share where they just came from. It's like kind of like, what is it? I'm losing my words here, but it's like that exchange. Like as the elder is about
Yeah.
to go to where they just came from, and they're not coming to where the elder is. So can you kind of like maybe talk on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, and all African indigenous tradition, it believes in the regeneration of man, like a one mankind, you know. So you have the Congo, they have the Congo cosmogram, which the sun represent. We always learn through nature. Like African people, they learn through nature. They learn everything through nature. So you say the sun, so like the sunrise, that's the birth. Like the sunrise, that's the birth of man. Sunset, you know, you at the height of your career. Well, at noon, you'll be at the height of your career. When it's setting, it's time, like it's you weaning out of your life. Then when it comes down at the bottom, you in the spiritual world. Now the sun, you don't see it. You're in the spiritual. Now when it comes back up, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, now that's like new birth. So from that standpoint, you know, they say we all live this life before. And in my studies, you know, what I wrote in regards to, they say when man is born, when I say mankind is born, individual is born, when they come through the birth canal, they forget, you know, what their previous life and the things that was done before. And then now they're trying to reconnect back to their destiny. And so this whole life, you know, it's all about connecting to our destiny. Well, it's what we feed our mind, it's what we read, what we tell ourselves. All those things is what's going to connect us to our destiny. You know, because what separates one person from the next is what they feed their mind. Think about it. You know, because what you believe or what you choose to believe is a choice. What you don't believe is still is a choice. So, you know, so once you get past that age of 5 or 6, you know, it's what we feed in our mind, or what we feed our ori, it's what we telling ourselves, or what we
Right.
put in our head, going to determine whether we connect to our destiny or not.
But don't you feel like eventually you're still going to get there anyway? It just might be a different route.
Well, I think when I, you know, so when we think of destiny, we always look at it in a positive light, right? That's what we look at in a positive light. So when we say connecting to one destiny, that means that one's going to be in balance, reach balance in their life, because you know you have to be balanced in the physical world to maintain, to achieve, to be successful. You have to have a sense of balance. So when we say reach your destiny, we always thinking about, you know, being in balance in life and being in balance who we are. So is it a destiny where your destiny meant for you to destruct? Well, when it comes to that, do we ultimately, you know, the destiny may appear one way, but we never know the outcome because it may still be going on. Like how your grandma lived through you, how your great grandparents lived through you. So meaning that we may came with a plan, but I don't think everybody fulfill the plan that they came for.
And then
And
that's when they have to, what, they get a
yeah,
chance to do it again. So it's like
yeah,
that reincarnation.
right. And you know what? And to be honest, I don't think that we all don't know every detail to the last bit of that,
Right,
because
I
we
agree.
all based on our tradition and culture. But one thing about it is it empower us to the next level, because only someone who, I guess, try to control and power someone will say that they know everything that goes on in the afterlife. But African culture and tradition, we learn through nature, because nature would tell us everything. So that's our guiding post on how we trying to determine what's going on.
And see, I do think that is the key part that's kind of missing in today's society, is that, like you said, that connection with nature, which in sense is connection with spirituality. We always feel like we have to go through something, or we have to, whatever, to have this intimate connection with spirit. And that's not true. And I do think that's a cool thing that's happening now. This awakening is people are realizing, like, no, I don't have to be in this building. I don't have to do, you know what I'm saying? Like these things that have this connection.
Yeah, because the two strongest forces I learned in this world is inspiration and manipulation. Inspiration always building and creating. Manipulation is to power and control. So a lot of, you have to feel like you have to do certain things, or someone tell you you have to be a certain way. A lot of times that's for control.
Yep.
That's for to have
Yep.
power. Because the same people who may tell you that, oh, you have to be like this, they live in the exact opposite.
Right. They just want to
You
control and
know,
manipulate you
right.
and put that fear
Exactly.
in. Because what is it? We really have two real emotions. Everything else stems from that, which is love and fear.
Okay,
So
correct.
like manipulation is the fear, and what is it? You say activation?
Inspiration.
Inspiration is
Inspire.
yeah, inspiration and being
Yes,
inspired, that stems from
yeah,
love.
right.
It's kind of like and I don't remember if I talked about this on this platform or not, but I remember like growing up in church, I was like so freaking scared, like all the
Correct.
time, because they always talked about hell and damnation and the rapture. And I remember once I came home from school and nobody was home. Like there was nothing there. And I thought I was left. Like, and
Right.
I remember that fear. And then as I became a mother and got older and I had the opportunity, I realized, like, I don't want my kids to, I want them to be in church, I want them to be in church, but I didn't want them to have that fear in them. Like, well, if you do that, you're going to hell. Or do you want to go to hell? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
like a
yeah.
threat, like almost every
And
day.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And as Afro Americans growing up here, I think all of us experienced that. I can remember waking up at night, running to my mom's, afraid of dying, because of that hell thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we hold it a different way than other people hold it,
Yeah.
because people will tell you something about hell, but people would tell you something about hell, and then they would do all type of shit like they don't care nothing about it. You know
And
what
then
I
you're thinking
mean?
like, oh my gosh, they're going to hell. Listen, I might need to talk to my
Right.
therapist about this, because now I'm thinking about it more like, we really, even in Vacation Bible School, they had, those little felt, those little felt, they had a little felt board, and you can put the
Right.
little figurines up there, and they would tell a story with the little felt things. And
Mm.
they had these little, and it was all cut up of like fire. And you would see people's hands coming out and whatnot.
Hmm.
Oh, what is it? Is that money?
I don't know who that is. Like they back here somewhere. Go ahead, we good.
Okay.
I hear him barking. Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
I'm gonna
that's a
text my
lot.
daughter to check on him.
Okay.
But yeah.
But yeah, I might talk to my therapist about that now. I'm thinking about, because I feel like this is oh, Nandi said that's not just in the US. So that's something like maybe, well, we know it was used as a way to control,
It
and keep
was
us
way
fearful.
control, right?
But my God, like I guess it's still working in the 21st century. We are
Yes,
in the 21st century, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's working. And then I look at it though, and I think it's only used for us, like in regards to the quote unquote system, because when you go on the block, man, you see brothers killing each other like it ain't nothing, and they don't care about it.
Which is
So
so sad.
yeah, so it's like, so and that's just like how people say, well, so that's why you got, I don't know, it's kind of crazy because people say, well, we're peaceful people, we don't do this or we don't like this, but are we really? You know what I mean? Because meaning that we can be anything we want.
Yeah.
That's always been my philosophy.
Yeah.
We can be anything we want. So if you put that on yourself, and a lot of times we put those things on ourselves because I think that we don't want to respond to the challenges that we have.
Right. Right.
We don't want to challenge the challenge.
Right. That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Nandi said that is money.
It is money.
Let me go back up. Okay. One thing. Okay. Nandi said, as people, we've always built out of chaos, as in how the soul food came about. Patchwork, and another one of those. That's true. That is so true. Well, one more thing, because remember I said two things I want to kind of discuss this in this book. The next thing is the programming. So I don't know, and I don't know. I could just be out of touch. I don't know if the violence is like how it was, before. And I'm wondering if it is not, is because everything has kind of moved digitally now. Like everybody is indoors, and like you have mentioned in the book, like, a lot of people use technology as a babysitter now instead of like interacting with their kids or like really, do you think like there's been a shift in that because the parents didn't want their kids to be out in the streets, or they didn't want their kids to be, kidnapped and everything else? They kind of just handed them, a tablet instead.
I think the influence is another problem in itself when we're talking about media outlets, internet, and that problem is more on the social realm, because when you think about it, a lot of times we desensitizing lives with the games, because that it doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect Afro Americans as much as it affects the Euros, like how they go to school shooting, how they play these games and stuff. But I don't know. Go ahead, correct me.
I don't know about not the actual going through it, but I will say our young Black children, I'm not even going to say boys, because I got a couple of friends that have adolescents and teenage boys and girls that they have lost their effing minds over these games. Like literally like bulked up at their mother, bulked up at their father over a game.
Yeah.
Like so I have never heard of that kind of, I couldn't imagine doing that to my parents.
So that's what I mean. Like on a social level, it's a whole nother problem. I believe it was Steve Jobs or was Bill Gates, and I think it was Steve Jobs when the iPad came out. He was like he didn't let his kids play with it. They didn't let his kids use it.
Well, it's just what's his name, Zuckerberg. Facebook, and his stuff, they always show all his stuff is always taped up. Wow. So yeah, the people who make the product, they don't even consume their own product.
Because when you look at it, especially with young developing minds, they're not at the point where they can decipher, and at the point where just like how we maybe can build out of certain things, like how we using the platform to grow, to get a better understanding of things. They don't use it like that. I look at my daughter, she's 10, and I be seeing the things she be looking at. I'm like, little kid, the silliness has become way too popular, way overboard. And a lot of things have changed since we were young. Like I say, they went from prankster. Now it's cool to be a prankster. Now you can just prank somebody and, it's just a joke. So it don't matter about the act, it's the intention. I mean, my daughter, she was doing pranks at like 7 years old. I'm like, no, you lying. That's not a prank. You lying.
Right. That is a lie. And you got to call them out.
Right. So it's like, yeah. So from that standpoint, what is creating is when our kids reach a certain age, as I mentioned in the book, and when we like, I can't believe how this happened to them. I didn't raise them like that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't. They got that from media. They
From
got that from the
programming.
outlet, from
Yep.
programming.
Yep.
Where else did it come from? So that's why I speak about what you feed your mind, what we entertain gonna affect us majorly. And from them as young, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard because it's hard with my daughters, especially at this point in time where it's just everywhere. But we have to understand and know what's going on so then we can still put the effort forward.
That's true. That is true. It's funny because now that I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional and like looking at the programming now, we were watching this Disney movie called Elemental, and it was a cute movie for what it was. It talks about the elements, blah 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 blah. However, they lying, they sneaky,
Right.
they lying. They're teaching the kids to lie to and hide things from the parents. It was so many hidden messages in plain sight that it's like, okay, so basically you're encouraging kids to lie until they can get their way.
Correct.
And then you're excusing that. So, but you're right. And I guess like, okay, if you watch these things with your kids or whatnot, but then still have a conversation with them about it, like, you know what, keep moving. But this person's right. Are they telling the truth? Was that good to lie to your parent? Like, no. Instead of just letting them
Yeah.
watching it and then moving on.
Yeah, influence is the biggest thing, even from the parental perspective, because if we just being parents, and we letting our children, have such and such so many hours watching, doing things, and we not necessarily monitoring, we can't expect the little bit of influence that we have to be on them unless we enforcing certain things, unless we sitting down with them and holding class with them ourselves.
Right.
But I know it's difficult because time, this life things happen and time be working. I was having class with my daughters maybe 2 months ago, a month and a half. I ain't have class since a month and a half from now. So I know how that gets, but long as we understand what's going on, then we're going to have that perception so we know what we have to do. And that's the main thing. A lot of people don't know.
Right.
Right.
That's what's up. Well, give thanks. So let me look really
Excellent.
quick. Any questions? Any questions? So I'm just going to give them a little bit of time just in case. But once again, we are talking about Faro's book, The Urban Guide for Mothers Raising Sons. But again, it's not just for sons, because I learned a lot from this, and I have adult daughters,
Right.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a grandmother soon, so I'll be able to test out a lot of these things.
Right.
So you don't get it right with others, get it right with the next wave. So, but yeah.
And one of the things about for mothers raising sons is that, every family dynamics have its own unique connection. So when it comes to, I have a chapter in there called the mama boy syndrome. And that was something that I believe I experienced. I know a lot of other young men that experience. But even in that connection, it's always the son, spouse, or significant other who have issue with it. When it's a father raising a daughter, it will, in that connection, going to always be that unique circumstance, that unique connection where it may be the wife of the father who has an issue with the relationship.
Hold on. Let me catch up. The wife of the father that has the issue with
The
whom?
the the son, I mean the father, like daddy's little girl.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of them have their unique, connections to different things, but all of it's like a circle and involves everyone. So you can read this book and it can be talking about someone you know in your
Mm-hmm.
life, someone affecting your life, and it can even affect you. I read the book, and it affect me with my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I just write the book, and I'll be like, oh shit, okay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So you can read the book, it can affect you in your relationship because everything comes full circle.
But also too, like me and my parents, and you, as you mentioned with your
Right,
parents, you know, in the book you mentioned your parents got a divorce when you were 3, you were young,
right,
and how
very
you were
young,
kind of
right,
resentful
right.
to her, although your father made the choice to move out of state. You know, you
Correct.
still saw him, you still had a relationship with him, but
Right,
he ultimately
right.
made this choice, and
He
you were
made a choice.
still holding her accountable for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, which, you know, I think that my parents had divorced when I was 13. I can honestly say, and I'm thankful, they never talked bad about each other. But I remember, like, during that time, like, I was a bit of a little bitch to my mom. And for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Correct.
I'm taking it out on her. You know, they got a
They
divorce. You
they
know,
equally
they
right.
equally got a divorce. So why am I not giving my mom the same grace I gave my father?
Yeah, one of the things I speaks about in the book as well is that, when it comes to relationship, especially dealing with us as young age and we looking at our parents,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what's fully going on in that relationship,
Right.
especially outside of but the two people that's in it.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, it's like, I was 3 at the time. I had a resentment. I don't know why. I ended up getting over it. Of
Yeah.
course, but that just, but we never really know what's going on in a relationship. That's why when people tell me about relationships, I always have that in my mind. Like, do we really know everything what's going on in this relationship?
Right. Not really.
Not
And like you
really.
said, half the time the people in the relationship don't even really know.
No, right. They can't express themselves clearly in their
Right.
emotions and everything like that. Correct. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think we're going to end it there. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Um, yeah, I'm working on. I have a book going to publishing now. Another book, which
What?
is the Warrior Priesthood Handbook, and it's based on the Warrior Priesthood Anthem, which is, I'm gonna say, the Warrior Priesthood Anthem is, I am the master of my destiny, the architect of my future. I build out of chaos. I create out of destruction. I fully equipped to deal with all my challenges.
Mm-hmm.
My confidence is my strongest weapon. My emotional maturity is unparalleled. I do not look for trouble, but if it comes, I deal with it decisively. Decisively, I'm a warrior and a priest. I live life spiritually and physically. I approach life physically and spiritually. I am a warrior priest. So it's just based on the anthem. 80 pages, 100 pages based on the anthem. I also, probably by the beginning of next month, I'm gonna be dropping another book, which is the Underground Spiritual Game,
Mm-hmm.
the ways of the warrior priesthood, and which is going to be explaining the Yoruba African tradition.
Okay. Now, do you have like, well, congratulations, let me say that on
Yeah,
your next book. Like, you get one out now, you just cranking them out.
right.
So, do
I've
you
been
have,
writing like over three.
oh,
Go ahead, I'm listening.
remember you were writing, is this the one that you were writing last year? When,
Probably. Oh no, no. The one I was writing last year when we was in Costa Rica
yeah.
was the Underground Spiritual Game.
Okay.
I had wrote this and I just had it on the back burner. That I just got the motivation to finish it.
Well, I think this is a good one to start with because
Yeah.
honestly, I'm not just saying this because you're on this. Like, if not, I really could have just kind of talked about something else. But
Right. No,
I
I understand.
really do enjoy this, and I'm gonna. And I was thinking that today. I said, I think I'm gonna not think. I know I'm gonna buy a few so I can gift to a couple of people that I know would really
Mm.
enjoy this. You know, but this time when you sign it, can you at least put your name in it? You
Okay.
didn't sign your name.
Of course. I ain't saw my name. I
No,
put your
but you gave
name.
me,
I
you
put your
did.
name
You
in
put
there.
my name, but no,
Okay.
I didn't
I'm gonna
want
put
your
my name
signature.
in.
So when you're famous, I can be like,
Okay, I
my
got
book was
you.
signed. But
I got you.
I'm gonna go back because we have a good question. It's like, why is that like resentment always like directed towards the mom? Do you think it's because that's the person who is present the majority of the time?
I don't know if the resentment always to the mom, but I had a lot of rappers got resentment toward their dad as well.
Right.
But I guess in my case, probably because she was there, and I only can speak for
Mm-hmm.
myself, probably because she was the closest one there, and I probably had a closer connection to my
Mm-hmm.
dad.
Did,
Yeah.
did your dad discipline you?
Yes, he did.
See,
He did.
my dad spanked me one time in my whole life. My mom
Uh,
spanked me every day.
every day.
Every day, almost every
Yeah.
day. And not to say I didn't, I didn't probably deserve.
Right.
I always had a sassy mouth. Like I've been cussing since I could talk. And so,
Hmm.
and that was her biggest thing with me was my mouth. I had such a smart mouth. But I think I would probably have, I mean, my dad was a phone call and a few miles away, but I don't know. I think because since he didn't really discipline me, and not to
All
say I
right.
didn't respect him, I did. He didn't spank me really except one time, and that's all it really took. I wonder if I just consider him to be more fun. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Yeah. I think overall, how what I express in the book, it takes a
Mm-hmm.
community. It takes more than we know. It takes more than any single parent. That's more than a job for any single parent. For even both parents, it takes grandparents, if not that, uncles, aunties, nephew, nieces, elders, because all those need to be an influence in the child's life.
Yeah. And that's if they're
Um,
good influences. If not,
Good
please build your
influences,
own, right. Build
yeah,
your
good
own network of
influences,
friends that are like,
correct.
aunties and uncles and whatever for the kids because
Yeah, has
some
to
of
be
these parents now
productive.
are toxic.
Yeah, have to be productive. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Well, again,
Yeah.
so
That's a whole nother
that's, yeah,
story.
that's another
Yeah.
conversation. So,
But see, toxic parents come from maybe toxic parents.
right,
Toxic,
right.
so
Yep.
that's another thing that's going down the line,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. So is there the Warrior Priesthood, is there like a group that you meet with online or in person? Um,
Well, actually, we're an organization and we meet in person, but I'm also going to start doing online maybe by the end of the month on YouTube, just like every Sunday or so, just do a Warrior Priesthood discussion.
that's what's up. And so they can find that through your link in your bio on
Yeah, you can
Instagram?
go.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to the link in the bio and find the book, find anything about the Warrior Priesthood, and that's warriorpriesthoodacademy.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to text that to me. I'm going to put that in the description too. Just that way
Okay.
people can at least go to it. Y'all know now I do put every single episode on YouTube now. So it will also be in that description there, which should have a clickable link. Um, but yeah, please support, but also like nurture yourself and give yourself a
Yeah.
good read. Like this is a good one. Like I said, you see I have all my little tabs on it because there are a lot of
Hmm.
is a lot of good information, a lot of gold nuggets.
How far
So
did you get?
I am,
That's a nice
yeah,
read.
I'm actually at the mama's boy syndrome. So
Oh, you just
I
got
haven't
to.
gotten
Oh,
there
yeah.
yet. Yeah, that's
Actually,
probably intentional.
the mama's boy syndrome and the thug life zombie is my two best.
Okay,
Is my two favorite.
all
Yeah,
right.
and then thug life zombie is right after that
Okay, all right. Because I don't recall seeing that chapter thing, but I like too how you
one.
have each like African proverb or quote at the very beginning.
Hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I like that,
Thank
and then it
you.
goes
Thank
into
you.
that very creatively and well put together. So
Thank you.
yes, give thanks. Well, we don't have
Okay.
any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Faro,
Blessings.
and
Blessings.
we'll
I share.
talk soon. Ashe.
All right. Double.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you again for having me, being a guest.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.